So you're saying with Hilton Honors, I can use points for a free night stay anywhere?
Anywhere.
What about fancy places like the Canopy in Paris?
Yeah, Hilton Honors, baby.
Or relaxing sanctuaries like the Conrad in Tulum?
Hilton Honors, baby.
Ooh, what about the 5-star Waldorf Astoria in the Maldives?
Are you gonna do this for all 7,000 hotels and resorts?
When you want points that can take you anywhere, it matters where you stay. Hilton for the stay.
Click the banner to join Hilton Honors for free today.
The friendship is sharing deal.
Because I want one of your McNuggets.
And I need some of your Quarter Pounder.
There's a deal for everyone at McDonald's. Get one favorite like 10-piece chicken McNuggets, a Quarter Pounder, or a Big Mac, and get another for just $1. Price and participation may vary. Valid for item of equal or lesser value.
Hey, Crime Writers On fans, just want to let you know, in case maybe you haven't heard, the Court of Special Appeals in Maryland has affirmed Adnan's appeal and affirmed that he is entitled to a new trial. So a long time coming. So we've got a lot of news in that area to talk about, but unfortunately, we won't get to that until the next episode because we recorded today's podcast before the decision came out on Thursday afternoon. So stick around, okay? And make sure you're subscribed to the podcast so you don't miss next week. We are bound to have some special guests to break down everything that this 138-page decision does. Okay, back to our regularly scheduled podcast.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
At first, it sounds like the answer to a parent's prayers, an exclusive boarding school in the Oregon mountains where troubled kids turn their lives around, unless they turn up dead or disappear. Are the Academy's questionable treatments to blame, or is an even more evil and brutal force at play? One without limits, one without remorse, one without mercy. From the #1 New York Times bestselling author Lisa Jackson, Without Mercy is a pulse-pounding thriller that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Because when it comes to suspense, Lisa Jackson kills it every time. Without Mercy is on sale now, everywhere books are sold. For more info, visit lisajackson.com.
The future is coming. Make it brighter with Squarespace. Squarespace makes it easy to turn your idea into a unique website. Showcase your work, blog, or publish content, even sell products and services of all kinds in just a few clicks. You can customize everything from look and feel to settings and products using beautiful templates created by world-class designers, and there's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. Head to Squarespace for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code CWO to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On, the podcast about other podcasts and also about true crime, pop culture, journalism. And this week, the Netflix docuseries about that time those cult members took over an Oregon town and resorted to violence to keep the community built on love. We'll talk about Wild Wild Country. Also, it's time to find out who is the winner of the Podcast Madness tournament. I don't know. We don't know. So joining me to dive into all that and a whole lot more is my true crime co-author, real-life husband, Kevin Flynn. Good evening, Kevin.
It's been an ordinary week. Absolutely, completely ordinary. Nothing has happened. Just like every other week.
Act 1. It's been an ordinary week.
An ordinary week.
Also with us is journalist, true
Act
crime
2,
author,
humble pie,
licensed private investigator, former defense investigator, and professional muskrat hunter, Laura Bricker. Hello, Laura.
Hello. Yes, I have the muskrat in our local river under surveillance. I'm getting his routine down. Saw him again today, so I know what he's up to.
You're casing the muskrat.
No, just quickly, Laura, you posted something on social media that everyone saw where it was like, mystery animal in this New Hampshire river. And then like a bunch of people were like, yeah, that's just a muskrat. That's not a mystery animal.
It's not Nessie.
Well, at first I thought it might have been a beaver because I couldn't get close enough to see, and it looked like it had like a big tail. So I was following it up and down the river trying to figure out what it was. And then I ran into one of like the old townie guys who's like, you know, mid-80s, and he set me straight.
Yeah.
But he said there are some beavers out there. He told me a story of a beaver jumping in somebody's smelt ice fishing shack one time.
Oh, yeah.
Put a whole bunch in a blender.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
and pour it into the water
God,
supply.
No.
Are we jumping ahead?
No. No, there was none of that. No, he said they thought this guy had been drinking a lot and making this up, but then the same beaver came in his shack. So
No, there are tons of beavers. I go on a walk every morning on a woodsy trail with my dogs. There's a tree that's been decimated by beavers. There are beavers. There are also river otters. And there are also muskrats, which look like beavers, except they have weird, wiry tails. It's like a thing.
Yeah, that's what this was. I've got him under surveillance. I know where he lives. I know when he comes out now.
Who's the guy who hosts all those BBC nature shows? Laura is that guy.
Right.
David Attenborough.
David Attenborough, yes.
Yeah. Also with us is the acclaimed novelist behind the City trilogy and our very favorite super skeptic, Toby Ball. Hello, Toby.
Namaste.
He's feeling the peace and love. Peace and love.
Free love.
That's right.
Free love. Well, just one quick piece of podcast business. Next week, we're going to be talking about the brand newly released, all the episodes came out today, the day of this taping, I believe, the new podcast from Panoply, Empire on Blood. It's already one of the top podcasts in America. But also on our radar in the upcoming weeks is the limited TV series Trust, about the Getty family and that weird kidnapping. We have the second season of Handmaid's Tale. There's so many things coming out. So stuff that you see that you want us to talk about, chances are we're planning to talk about it. So we got you covered here at Crime Writers. And speaking of we've got you covered, let's talk for a second about how our listeners have us covered. Kevin, should I drop that sound effect in right here?
Let's do it.
We have a big announcement to make. In case anyone who's listening to this podcast has not heard, our little podcast, made in a basement in New Hampshire, beat out This American Life, the greatest radio show in the history of the world. And we are the winners of the inaugural Podcast Madness tournament put on by Discover Pods. We won the whole damn thing.
I can't believe it. We just wanted to get out of the first round.
Yeah, I know. So, let's just survey our fellow podcasters. Toby, thoughts?
I think it's just we got to up our game. If you're not moving forward, you're falling behind or something. Anyway, it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's cool. It's cool having so many people engaged, and we've got a really good listenership who like to discuss things on Twitter and on the Facebook fan site and all that stuff. So that's. It's great. It feels good.
Toby just seems very underwhelmed after we've been crowned the best podcast in the world. Laura,
you gotta act like you've been there.
That's right.
Laura, what do you think? Can I please have your thoughts, Laura Bricker?
I think it's pretty damn exciting because today I was out walking around town in my new fancy walking shoes, and one of our listeners, who's a friend of mine, she's a devoted listener, stopped me to be like, "Hey, congratulations!" She was very excited. So I'm getting some notoriety around our little town of Exeter for this big win, which is very exciting.
Yeah, I bumped into a guy at the State House who said the same thing to me.
Really?
Yeah.
You were at the State House for work today?
This was actually last week when it was still madness.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you what I have learned. Because our listeners, especially the ones who tweet to us, now we know that our Twitter followers, they're the most probably devoted and engaged listeners, and also the people who are in our Crime Writers on Facebook discussion group.
No doubt.
If you're a member of our regular Crime Writers on Facebook page, that's awesome. But if you go to the Facebook discussion group and become a member there, you will meet your people. They are super engaged and interested. And here's the theme that I heard when we were expressing this whole thing about how it's all about our listeners and they're great. I heard this over and over again, which is, I subscribe to a lot of podcasts and I agree that This American Life is maybe a better show and that Criminal is a better show and all these shows are better shows. But your show, Crime Writers On, is the one I have to listen to the minute it drops. I listen to it the day that it drops. I can't wait to listen to it. It's my appointment listening podcast. And you and people, 1,000 people tweeted to us that they voted for us for that reason, because they don't disagree that we're not the best, but we are for some reason the must listen show. And I just think that's it's exactly what we're trying to do, right, Kevin?
Yeah. I'm, still kind of amazed by it all. It really isn't us. It is the listeners. You guys were the ones that pushed us along. And I kind of feel bad for Kevin at Discover Pods, because we
I wrote to him.
We totally swamped his experiment.
No, I wrote to him and I said, do you feel like we hijacked your little contest? And he wrote back and he said, no, there were more than 10,000 votes and you guys actually won this thing. Like, you won it.
Wow.
And like the fact that you engaged your listeners, like that's part of it. Like, you won it. Like, it's not bad. Like, he doesn't feel like we hijacked it at all.
I feel like we probably shouldn't run next year.
Yeah, we should retire.
We should retire on top. Not interested in being in the bracket. Undefeated, exactly. Yeah. Let's leave
Go
undefeated.
out on a good note.
But I got the same thing, and I know all of you guys did too. The people were just saying, like, all through this, were saying such nice things. There were times where I was like really choked up, like long before we got to this point, because people are really sincere. I don't know. I think we've done a good job of trying to engage everybody that reaches out to us. You know, sometimes we don't see all the tweets, and sometimes we miss emails and things like that, but we really try to say something to the folks that take the time to listen to us and reach out. And I know we want to talk about the stickers.
Yeah, you can talk about that.
But, we asked people to, email us, and it was the first 100?
The first 100 people, yeah.
Well,
we had thousands of emails.
Yeah, there's about 1,000 emails.
I had to stop the forward function on the email.
Yeah, well, then they all went to me directly. So I have the ones you didn't get. And I swear I will get to all of them and read them all and respond, even if it's just a little note of appreciation that you took the time to do that for us. We're going to take the time to do that for you. But I just kind of glanced through some of them, and we had listeners emailing us from Brazil and from China.
Croatia.
Wow. Scotland and the UK. New Zealand and
Africa,
Australia. We got some from
Italy,
Australia.
the whole
I didn't see those, really.
Oh, we have so much foreign postage.
Antelope,
we need to pay
Oregon?
For. Oh, I wish.
Not antelope.
We're going to be paying for a lot of international.
Pune, India.
Yeah. So it was really great, and we just thank you for sustaining us.
Yeah, and thank you to Kevin Goldberg for putting together a winnable contest.
A winnable contest. This is one we can hack. We don't need Russians. We can do it ourselves.
Anyway, but I'm just going to lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg would say, and just say we are obviously the best podcast in the world. Right? We're the champions.
We are.
All right. Well, speaking of engaging with our listeners, I want to thank everybody who joined Patreon this week. Last week, we announced that if you join Patreon, you will be getting some more Toby time, because Toby is going to be making some additional content for our Patreon, including Toby. I want to tell everyone what we're going to be doing tomorrow for our Patreon listeners.
Tomorrow, we are going to be recording the first, as yet unnamed, although there's like a zillion suggestions, book discussion podcast.
Yep.
And it's going to be on I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara.
It's a book club.
It's a book club.
It's the Balls Deep
Should
Book
I tell
Club.
them who the guests are?
Because that's my favorite name so far that our listeners suggested is the Balls Deep Book Club.
Oh, God. I don't want to have to explain that to my daughter.
It's exciting. It's you and me and two other people.
Yep.
Who are those two other people, Toby?
It's Patrick Hines from True Crime Obsessed and Rabia Chaudhry from everything.
That's right. So we're taping that tomorrow, and we're going to upload it to our newly created Crime Writers Extras podcast feed, and Patreon subscribers, I think it's like the $5 level or whatever, we'll get a ton of extra content that we're going to be making. So it's very exciting. I'm excited to have the conversation. And I just want to say, as we're talking about subscriptions, for our Stitcher Premium listeners, Kevin and I last night taped an episode of These Are Their Stories, the Law and Order podcast, which for our Stitcher Premium listeners, if you subscribe at stitcherpremium.com/crime, use the promo code CRIME, you can listen to the ad-free week early version of what we taped last night. Kevin, you just want to tease it because it was legendary.
We had our new friend Kimberly from Date with Dateline, and we were talking about this most recent episode of SVU, where the big twist at the end was that the guy who ran off with the 16-year-old girl was actually, and he didn't know it, was actually her father. Yes, everybody responded like that.
Everyone in America simultaneously vomited.
It was
who
like,
was watching
what
an episode
the actual fuck?
What's that disorder called?
Genetic sexual attraction. It's a real thing.
And And we had the amazing.
Wait,
Here we go. Toby wants to hear more. Explain
Oh
this.
boy.
genetic sexual attraction?
Yes, it's
Toby,
a real
it's a thing.
That's
disorder.
like what they call incest?
Well,
No.
it's what happens when
Wait,
when
I
a
want
child.
you try to explain
okay.
this with a straight face. I'm going to look at
It
you.
happens when a child meets his or her parent as an adult, and they haven't grown up together.
never met before.
Never met before, and
Or
sometimes it
siblings
happens.
meet as adults. Never met before.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
It happens. But is it? Yeah, it is incest. It's just.
But they don't know it's incest.
They don't know it's incest.
They
Well,
have an
I think in real life, a lot of people know it's incest.
Yes.
But it's not. But in
well,
SVU
in the real
world,
life case that crazy episode of SVU.
how about we let our
No, I know.
How about we let
Wait,
people
how-
listen?
Let me just
How
tell you something,
often-
Toby. I would love like this. I know you don't watch Law and Order SVU. I know you don't. This
Yes.
week's episode of Law and Order SVU was so fucking bananas. Like because usually there's like twists and turns all through. This was a super linear episode, and then in the last 5 minutes there were like 17 plot twists. The ultimate one of which was. Not only is she your daughter, but that's who you've been sleeping with.
We had an affair 17 years
they
ago.
were sleeping together?
Do the math.
Oh
yeah.
And
They
he was
ran
also
away.
her music teacher.
It starts off with
I
a girl.
still-
It starts off with a girl disappearing after last being seen by a guy wearing a clown mask, who during the daytime is a butcher. And the night that she disappeared, and the necklace was found in the trunk of his car, he was dragging away a black duffel bag filled with what? He says. Hundreds of pounds of expired meat to sell to a restaurant illegally. But I swear it wasn't a body.
Yeah.
And that's not the fucking crazy part.
No, that's not the crazy part.
How common is it for people to run into their biological parents without knowing who they are?
Oh, super common, Toby. No,
Well,
I'm just kidding.
And then how do they find out afterwards?
I don't know. I don't know of cases where they didn't know that it was mom or dad.
Apparently,
but,
it happens. It's a thing.
Yeah, this was the
It's
real
like
life case
Oedipus.
it's like somebody who reached out looking for their biological parents after being given up for adoption.
Toby, you just said it's
and
like
when
Oedipus.
they get together,
Well, you can't have Oedipus without.
us.
Sorry, I know it's a horrible
Oh
joke.
my God.
I think.
Anyway,
We're the best podcast.
we're the best podcast in the world, and you should subscribe to our Stitcher Premium channel, StitcherPremium.com/crime. Use the promo code CRIME for a free month so that you can check out us talking with Kimberly from Date with Dateline, who is hilarious, talking about this week's fucking crazy episode
Yeah.
of SVU.
That'll be out next week.
Even if you cancel your subscription immediately and never pay for the paid month and just take the free month, I kind of think this week's These Are Their Stories podcast is worth it. Just my opinion. Anyway, Kevin, can you please read this for me, please?
True Crime Podcast Update.
Big news, guys. We talked a couple months ago about the fact that Dirty John, the podcast, was going to be turned into a scripted series by Bravo based on the story in the Dirty John podcast, of course, in which we heard our friend Deborah. Kevin likes to call her Stupid Deborah, but that's
No,
not what
I
the
don't like to
podcast
call
is
her
about.
Super Deborah.
No, you say
Everybody
it's not.
calls her Super
It's
Deborah.
not Stupid Deborah, it's Dirty John.
Dirty John.
They're turning it into a scripted series, and we learned this week that the amazing Connie Britton is going to be starring as
Deborah.
aka Stupid Deborah.
Yeah, stupid.
Kevin, thoughts?
I think Connie Britton's great. I've loved
she
her.
elevate
since
it?
She elevates it. Yeah, she's legit. I know that Bravo has green lighted.
Greenlit.
Greenlighted. There's an anthology series which is yet unnamed. This is the first season is going to be the Dirty John story,
Yeah.
and the second season will be another true
The Crime
case.
Writers On season, starring Connie Britton as me.
And Gilbert Godfrey is me. We've already done this casting thing. We can't go
That's
through
true.
it again.
Maybe they're like super good. Like maybe
Oh,
it'll
yeah.
be like a whole different like twist. It'll be good. I mean, I just don't think we should. I mean, maybe it'll be super good, guys.
Okay. All right.
Well, yeah. We'll let
We'll
you
see.
know.
Well, Connie Britton, I
Yeah.
think, has elevated the project, though, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, she's a big time name.
She's a
Yeah.
big time name that people like love. They love Connie Britton.
Well, you just tell me who Dirty John's going to be, and then I'll tell you what.
Oh, who would you pick to be Dirty John?
Toby Ball. Because he's good looking.
We're in talks.
We're in talks.
That's actually a good question because now that we've seen what John looked like.
He was a good looking
Knowing
guy.
now that Connie Britton is
Jake
Deborah.
Gyllenhaal.
No.
No.
It's gonna be like a TV person.
It's going to be like a soap opera
Ooh,
star.
McSteamy. The guy who played McSteamy on
he
Grey's
could do
Anatomy.
it.
He could totally do it.
Yeah.
It could be
Wears
him.
Scrubs. Dirty
All right.
Scrubs.
Moving on. Kevin, can you please read this for me, please?
TV news update.
All right. This is a little bit outside of our wheelhouse. But this week, one of my all-time favorite TV news stories of all time aired. And I just want to talk about it just to set it up. This is from a TV station in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this, to me, is a case in which a reporter was perhaps sent on an assignment where he realized, in Kevin's words, at some point during the day, there was no there, and then went for it anyway in a big way. So I'm just going to play that for you, and then I want to talk about it after we hear the tape and get your guys' reactions.
When new images of Central Avenue showed up online today, so too appeared the bare behind of a prankster on the edge of UNM's campus. Our Caleb James got to the bottom of this. Caleb?
You know, I really didn't learn much of anything today, but I wanted to stick that one last butt pun in your toss for you. It's still a funny picture, though, and thankfully my friend alerted me to it this morning because by afternoon, Google had wiped it clean.
Wiped it clean. My God.
These brand new images of Central harken back to a sunny day, wispy clouds, blue skies, green trees, a couple of folks flipping off the Google car, and a man fully exposing his butt to the camera. It really was a beautiful day. When KOB first discovered the full moon on Monday morning, it appeared Google's facial blurring routine had possibly caught the two bird flippers, but had somehow entirely missed Seymour Butts over here. We added our own blur out of courtesy to you and our friends at the FCC. You know, it really isn't until you come here to the scene that you really get a firm grasp on the fact that our mooner was equal parts opportunist and quick thinker. Based on our reconstruction, it's likely he relied on that distraction caused by those middle finger flingers over here before walking over, resting his bag right here on this ledge, resourceful, before bending over, dropping trowel to deliver that midday moon. A moon that glimmered for just a moment in time. Hours after spotting it, Google buffed that butt right out of the frame. And we, of course, reached out to Google today to ask them about all this. We left a message on a media hotline. We also sent an email to a media inquiries email address. We haven't heard back, but what are they going to say, you know? So we'll tell you if they get back to us. For now, we're reporting at Harvard and Central on UNM's campus. I'm Caleb James, KOB, Eyewitness News 4.
Yeah, give Caleb James all of the Emmys because he clearly was sent out on an assignment and at some point during the day realized there was nothing and was told, you have to fill 4 minutes, do something. Toby, when you worked at the Congressional Quarterly, did you ever have a bum assignment that you had to just fill out with butt puns and reenactments of moonings on a main thoroughfare in Washington, D.C.?
He was a crack reporter.
Oh, God. No.
But Toby, isn't it refreshing to see a TV reporter just like doing exactly what you would do if you got like a shitty assignment and were told like you have to do journalism today?
I could see where it would have been very satisfying, not only to him, but to a lot of his colleagues who probably wish they had done it.
Kevin, when you were a TV reporter, did you ever have a situation like that where you were sent on something?
Oh, but I loved doing it.
Yeah. So
I loved it.
Do you think that Caleb enjoyed this?
I think he did. I'm jealous. I wanted someone to assign me that too. I would have. I don't think I would have the guts to say the toss.
Yes.
About the
and the dropping trowel.
No, dropping trowel is fine.
And
it's
the
like
finger flingers.
Google wiped it clean.
Yes.
It just
the writing is so good.
Hey, as long as he didn't get into trouble, I'm like, good for you, man.
Laura, thoughts as a intrepid local news reporter yourself? Do you think that Caleb James also deserves all of the Emmys?
Yes, I especially loved at the end when he was talking about, you know, how they reached out to Google. He's like, well, they didn't respond. What are they going to say? It was just so refreshingly honest.
It's true. Yeah. They know there's no there.
I didn't learn anything today.
That was good.
So, Kevin, you used to be a TV reporter. Like, final thoughts about what Caleb James did there?
I think it was great.
Yeah.
I mean, I really enjoy the soft news stories, and this was a fun one. And it's like the kind of thing that shouldn't be on the news at all.
No,
and
he knows it.
And he just went for it, and he made it something. And I think that's what great reporters can do. They can make chicken salad from chicken shit. And,
ooh.
Yeah, people say that to me. Tell me to go make chicken salad. And it's a funny story about a guy who wanted attention, and he could have got attention if he just set up his own website through Squarespace. Gotten plenty of attention. Because with beautiful templates created by world-class designers, you almost spit your wine out.
I did.
Did I get you?
You did.
I got you.
I didn't know that was coming.
With beautiful templates created by world-class designers, Squarespace makes it easy to turn your idea into a new and unique website. Showcase your work, blog, or publish content, even sell products and services of all kinds in just a few clicks. And it's so great because there's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade ever. We have all of our websites are Squarespace websites. Crime Writers On.
Every single one of them.
Our author, Kevin Flynn, and the These Are the Stories podcast. That's at Law & Order Pod. And I tell you, I wanted to do refresh it. And basically, I used it, just picked a different template.
Yep.
And it went right in, and it just rearranged everything in a great way.
Let me tell you, Kevin, my day job, I'm the digital director of a news station, like a widely respected, national award-winning news outlet.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we need to make a microsite for a project, Squarespace.
Yeah.
It's the best. Whether you know a lot or a little about coding, programming, you can know nothing and make a beautiful website. But if you know a little, you could make it extraordinary.
Head to squarespace.com for a free trial. Really, just go around, mess around, make a website or two. When you're ready to launch it, just use offer code CWO to save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com, offer code CWO.
CWO. What else you got, Kevin?
Well, the RX bar is the whole food protein bar made with a few simple, clean ingredients, all which serve a purpose. And in the interest of full transparency, all of those core ingredients are labeled right on the front of the package. No BS at all. It's a really great thing to take for breakfast on the go, snack at the office, to throw in your bag for a bike ride. Anytime you're going out, Rebecca, I know that you keep some...
keep in my desk and my drawer at work.
And Laura, you're a big fan of the RX bar too, right?
I am a big fan of the RX bar, and I'm going to tell you one thing I love. It has dates in it, and for anyone who's tried to make things like this on their own, dates are the biggest pain in the butt to try to work with. So I appreciate that they have done all the hard work, and it's delicious, and it's good for you.
Yeah, whether you like sweet or savory chocolate or fruit flavors, there is an RX bar for you. So for 25% off your first order, visit rxbar.com/crime.
Crime.
And enter promo code crime at checkout. That's rxbar.com/crime, promo code crime for 25% off your first order.
Well, moving on, Netflix is out with Wild Wild Country, a documentary about the times, town, and troubles created by a group of Rajneeshi followers who flocked to Oregon in the early 1980s.
I'm here in one of the largest ranches in the Northwest. Today, it's Rajneeshpuram because a prominent Indian guru and his followers bought it.
Our vision was to create a community
based on compassion and sharing.
Bhagwan's agenda was simply to raise the consciousness of humanity. That was his goal.
America was land of promise. It was my conviction we will have no problems.
I don't think America has a place for these people.
The followers of Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh created their own city with airport, founded on peace and free love, but their efforts to protect their community from locals and the government eventually turned violent. Sort of. In talking about Wild Wild Country, we're going to be discussing some spoilers. So if you'd rather hear our review without the discussion, just look at the show notes for the timestamp to which you can skip to get our thumbs up or thumbs down on Wild Wild Country. And if you want to hear us talk about it because you've watched it, here we go. All right.
Sort of?
I just want to couch it a little bit because a big thing has come up. People are watching this documentary, like the Rajneeshis Are they a violent, scary cult? Or are they a bunch of free-loving, yoga-loving weirdos who like to get naked and just wanted to make a city out of a ranch in Oregon?
And also firebombed city officials, try to poison
after
700 people.
They were attacked.
Yeah.
Kevin, hold on. Laura, thoughts?
Oh, that makes it fine. That
thoughts,
makes it fine.
Laura? Thoughts? I'm not defending it.
You are.
So I'm a little conflicted on this because, I'm watching this and there seems to be, even in the end, like goodness in the people that were involved and wanting to help others and wanting, like the one woman who was, the leader, the general. Now she's
Sheila?
got like her own. She's got her own little commune for old people with dementia. So it's hard to say. I feel like I don't really have the full story, even after 6 hours of this, to really make a determination on that.
Right. So something happens, Kevin, and I know that I'm breaking format, but because usually we start this conversation with like, let's talk about the structure. Let's talk about the characters. I got a note today because, Toby and Laura send their notes and then I use that to sort of, to inform what we're going to be talking about.
Right.
Toby sent me a note today that blew my goddamn mind.
Yeah.
Toby, I think that I know which note it is. Do you want to just go ahead and tell everyone what I'm talking about?
So back in like 1992, maybe, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, went to Mexico, and we ended up staying at a place called the Osho Oasis, which was in Tulum, this little sleepy town with Mayan ruins that are right on the ocean. It's really beautiful. But yeah, so I hadn't really thought about it a whole lot. Like there was a meditation place and there's definitely like some like
orgies,
like balding guys with ponytails and stuff like that walking around going to meditate. But there's also like just travelers and tourists such as ourselves. While I was watching this, I've read about the stuff that went on in Oregon, but I hadn't realized that he changed his name to Osho. So I was like, oh my God, was this a Rajneeshi place? And what it turns out is that kind of, in that the woman who started it had gone to Pune, the Pune ashram, after Rajneesh had the Bhagwan had gone back, had been sort of forced back to India. And then when he died, she left her husband, she says in her little write-up, and wanted to have a place that kind of recreated the vibe of the ashram. So she like opened this thing, and it was like these little cabanas. I mean, they're not even really cabanas. They're like these huts on the beach with like thatched roofs, hanging beds so that lizards couldn't get in them and stuff. So it was a cool and very beautiful place. And I did not know at the time the little line you could draw to the food poisoners of Oregon.
Right.
Well, there's the thing. Toby, I know that you knew about this story. I feel like an idiot because watching this whole documentary, we see footage from Oprah, we see footage from the World News Tonight. Every major news program like really covered this. This quote unquote invasion of this quote unquote cult, which there are reasons why I'm putting them in quotes, which we'll talk about. But like this was a huge news story in America that I know I was only a little kid when it happened, but like I've never heard. This is not
it's been forgotten and underreported in the years since. Yeah.
Kevin, what did you think when you started hearing the details of the scope, the scale, the fact that they literally...
I knew some of the plot lines. I remember the salad bar poisoning. I didn't remember a lot of the rest of it.
They built an entire city with an airport in under 3 years?
I did not know that. I tell you, there's a lot of like really interesting, compelling stuff in this, and maybe we'll talk about this later, but I think it really just skimmed over a lot of important questions, which left me like, how do they finance all this, and what exactly are their beliefs?
Right.
And really, you're just going to let Sheila say they weren't violent when she, plotted the murder of Bhagwan's doctor and they had a lab and created biological weapons.
Listen.
Don't roll your eyes, Rebecca.
I'm not saying she wasn't violent. I'm just saying she's also kind of badass. And I found myself, because of the lack of that. All right, let's take a, I feel like we're just getting into a discussion without any context.
See, well, that's kind of like the series that we just watched, then, isn't it?
So let me take a big step back, right?
All right.
We are thrown into a story, and dare I say, it is a sex cult. We were thrust into a story. And just given a tremendous amount of information from, by the way, the principal players in the story. You have the main, like, it's like having David Miscavige talk about the Scientologists. You have Sheila, who was like the first lieutenant of this alleged cult, giving like her first person narrative, and she's not disputing any of the facts of what happened. And then you have the actual townspeople who were like delightful, but also kind of xenophobic, like telling their account of what happened. You've all
they're the weird
principles.
ones, Rebecca.
No, but you have all the principles, right?
Yeah.
So all the elements are there. You're like, holy shit, we have the U.S. attorney, we have all the Oregon people, we have the state's attorneys, we have like the actual cult people. I still can't figure out, like, what's the harm? Like, what was this cult doing that would make it a cult? Laura, you kind of sound like you agree with me.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I kept waiting, and I'm like, did I miss something? And I'm like, no, I was paying attention. I guess in the beginning, we're watching it, and it seems very idyllic. They just wanted to go. They were like happy hippies. They just want to go out and live in the countryside and have sex with everybody, and live in harmony. I'm like, I guess I just didn't really see what the issue was, and it seemed more like the locals were like, something fun is going on out there. Like, whoa, some weird stuff's happening. Like, they're driving through town in their Rolls Royce. And I'm like, so it's weird. It's definitely, there's 50 people living in this town, and they're all like farmers and ranchers with their lassos and everything. So I think that this documentary left out some key parts as to why these issues started. And I don't understand why. I mean, you just have to go on Wikipedia and pull it up, and it's like right there at the top that is related to trying to skirt around local zoning ordinances.
Right.
But what do they believe? I didn't really know what they believed. I didn't know. I'm like, okay, so this guy just like came here from India. Like, who is he? Like, why are they following him from?
and are they doing that thing where they're alienating people from their families? Are they doing that thing that cults do where like people are scared to leave? It
didn't seem like anyone was,
it
from what we are
like
presented.
Yes.
All we know is what we were presented, right?
And what's your impression of just, okay, so we got a really interesting question on our Facebook group from Katie, who I happen to know from when I was a kid, who says like, what is the harm, basically, as I'm paraphrasing, what's the harm about like wanting to live in a commune with people who think like you? Where does that turn into a cult? Because I don't think we're shown the stuff that makes this like a quote cult. Because what we know about cults is they isolate you from your family and friends.
Right.
They take everything that you own, like, and then you get into a point where
check.
But how are they isolating you from your family and friends? It seems like people could come and go as they please.
They could, but they are encouraged to leave home and come live in Oregon with the Bhagwan.
And only wear red.
And only wear red. Okay, you starting to like see
I still not.
the folly of your logic.
But they've got ashrams all over the world,
right?
Like that was the big city, but they show that map where there's ashrams. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Thoughts about Rajneeshis. Like when you compare them to cults that we consider like dangerous cults like Jonestown, when you compare them to the Scientologists, when you compare them to cults that we like objectively know. I'm sorry, you don't believe the word objective is being correctly used here, Kevin, but like the cults we know are like legit dangerous, where people are harmed, people die. Not talking about the actual acts that Sheila may or may not have instigated.
Let's just not look at those.
The culty scariness. Don't you feel like this documentary like didn't make a case for that?
No, it definitely did. I think. I mean,
really?
my feeling is there's a few things, but one of them is how weaponized they were. Every like film has got guys with automatic weapons, so that would give me pause. I think it's a little more complicated. I mean, they kind of hint at it a little bit when they talk about like the original ashram in Pune, India,
which still exists, which you can still go to for $2,000 a month.
Stay, yeah.
Laura and I were like TripAdvisoring it today.
I looked it up. Yeah, Crime Writers on.
But it sounds like, and they just kind of hint at this a little bit, but it sounds like it's a place where things were going on, like and more Western things. Like some of the therapies that were being come up, like I think they talk about the human potential movement, but also like Gestalt therapy and things like that. And so it wasn't just that it wasn't like David Koresh or Jim Jones, where everybody was kind of buying into this one religious line, but that he had sort of created a place where people could come and sort of indulge in these sort of radical ways of thinking about the way you are as a person. It sounded a lot like Esalen, which is a place in California that during like, I guess the late 60s and then into the 70s was sort of where radical therapeutic type things were sort of tried out and talked about. And people lived in this very new agey way to the point where I did a little research, and the guy who had founded Esalen actually went over to the ashram in Pune to check it out because he thought it'd be a very strong spiritual experience. And he left because he felt like some of the stuff that was going on there was too violent, which I think is what they kind of show in the
movie.
The movie.
Right.
Yeah.
My thought was that wasn't so much something that the Bhagwan was promoting, more that he kind of let that happen. And that was sort of, at least some of the therapies were very sort of confrontational, and it was like sort of being very raw and sometimes physical to a degree. And he felt like that, like at least some group of these people had gone too far in that direction.
Kevin?
So, Rebecca, let me ask you a question. Who bombed the Hotel Rajneesh?
Some of the disgruntled Oregon people.
No, it was an Islamic militant group, and people were arrested and went to jail.
Yeah.
But watching this thing, what are you left to believe?
That it's some Oregonians, disgruntled Oregonians.
And then that caused what?
Them to arm themselves.
To militarize, right?
Right.
So I think that is a huge omission.
Yeah.
They certainly weren't arming against a possible retaliation from Muslim extremists.
Right.
They were looking at the U.S. government and the other people in Antelope.
Well,
I think it was a big. That was pretty misleading.
Okay, so before we get to that story point, which I really want to talk about, Kevin, there was more archive footage in this than in like anything else I ever watched from the period.
There were 300 hours of
Why were
video.
they filming everything they did all the time?
They were home movies.
Yeah.
But
they also had like professional camera people there.
Yeah. Well, that's part of, and Toby, I think, is more of the expert on what this cult was up to. But
they thought they were changing the world and they wanted to document it. I mean, that's how it felt to me.
Yes,
Right.
and every night they would watch videos of the Bhagwan talking about whatever. So, yeah, they were definitely documenting a lot of what was going on. They certainly didn't feel like they were ashamed of anything. It wasn't a closed compound because you see the local TV people hanging out there all the time. They had a press person and whatnot. So yeah, they just have this really great treasure trove. It's like almost impossible not to make a documentary when you can see every single historical point playing out in real time.
Right. Now, Laura, every time they said something in this show, they then showed video of it. It's like literally, like every time.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. And this is like a group of like thousands of just regular people, mostly Western people. Who
we never really got a sense of how big.
Well, we do know that they went to this place in Oregon, the
Big Muddy Ranch.
Big Muddy Ranch that was like 100 square miles, and literally in under 3 years, and we see video of it, like people built hundreds of housing units. They built an airport, like a literal airport that jets could land on, not like a Podunk, New Hampshire airport, but like a literal airport, and that huge hall that held 10,000 people in like a short period of time. It was incredible. Like the footage of them doing it, like they showed them
the farmlands and the land reclamation was amazing.
They land.
And I want to know more about how did you pull that off?
Yeah.
How did you have contractors and
architects?
Well, but the architects were, I mean, a lot of the people who were sort of the brains behind it were Rajneeshis.
Right.
It was Rajneeshi architects and it was Rajneeshi lawyers and it was, they had the people within the movement.
You know how
I love our listeners. I don't know how many of them right now would be able to step up and say, yes, I can excavate this entire mountain and build you a lake.
Listen. These were, you know how I talk about sometimes, and I have this thing about like disgruntled boomers, or like selfish boomers, narcissistic boomers. These are the people. These are like the boomers. These were all like those people who like the lawyer guy who's like the main like pro Rajneeshi voice in the thing, who's still like super sentimental about it, is exactly what we're talking about. He put all of his lawyerly skills. He had been like a high-powered partner in like a high-powered law firm. He gave it all up and put all of his lawyerly skills to work with beads around his neck toward fighting the man on behalf of this cult. And he was just a lawyer. And but they had like thousands of people. It was really incredible. We have to talk about Sheila. because she is sort of the main character of this whole thing. I don't want to ask the question. I'm just going to say it, and then I'll let you guys give your own thoughts. It's very difficult for me, even though the documentary lays out from the very beginning that Sheila is like the Goebbels of this enterprise. Like she's like the lieutenant who does all the bad things, orders all the things. It's very difficult for me to not like her. And it's very difficult for me to not admire her in some way. I find her incredibly compelling, really powerful, really interesting. The most attached in some ways of any of these people talking in the thing, like objectively about what's happening. I kind of love Sheila and I feel bad about it. Laura, your thoughts on Sheila?
I go back and forth on her. You know, she's definitely feisty, but she was also feisty / confrontational whenever something was going on. Instead of, it seemed like, trying to work with the local government and the people in the area where they moved, it's like she was always got her, hackles up, ready to fight them. It made me wonder why she was coming into it from that angle. But, the fact that she went through everything she did and then basically got sold down the river, and she's the one who ended up doing jail time. But she bounced back. She seems to be she's like Teflon woman. Like all this stuff happens and it doesn't seem to faze her. It was just fascinating. And, fascinating to see the women that were following her around and that were I can't remember what she called them, her little group of women, some of them who fled with her when she went to the island off the coast of Germany. It was very interesting. I think the thing that turned me about her was in the end when one of the police investigators was talking about interviewing her and how forthcoming she was, but also that she just seemed to lack normal empathy for others and had no sort of regrets or anything about, any harm that had come to people. And that part, kind of went against everything that the Rajneeshi was supposed to be about in terms of loving everybody and being all happy and kind of being this utopian society. Seemed kind of odd to me.
Laura, does that jive with the old woman who is helping senior citizens in hospice that we see?
No, and that's the thing. It's she's really an enigma. And when when you see her, in the end, and you see what she's doing now, and she doesn't want these old people with dementia and schizophrenia to be forgotten or left out or mistreated, and she's got her own little commune going on. So I don't know if that was the police officer saying that about her lacking empathy was just his way to justify what they were doing, but she's a very, out of all the characters, she's the one I just could not figure out.
What do you think, Toby? What are your thoughts about Sheila?
I kind of agree with Laura that the thing that stuck out to me most about when people talked about her was the thing about lacking empathy. And, when you hear her talk about the days in Oregon, there is no point at which she seems to be able to put herself in the position of the people that oppose her, and doesn't seem to have any consideration for the fact that in this tiny little town of Antelope, suddenly having hundreds and hundreds of hippies having sex all over the place and dressed up in weird clothes and all this stuff would be disorienting at the least. I think part of the thing with the documentary is that you definitely, she's your access point to the community. If you'd had a different access point to the community and it was more about sort of the day-to-day life of normal people there, I think it would have been a very different program. But for her, it seemed like her one thing was to establish and then defend the community.
Well, one of the things that's most interesting to me about Wild Wild Country is that we're introduced to all these adorable town folk, right? You have the guy, the rancher, who just so happens to be the son of the guy who invented Nike sneakers, the billionaire.
Right.
You have the adorable ranch-owning couple sitting on the leather couch together. You have that other town's guy.
The goofy mayor?
The guy who looks like Ernie from Sesame Street, but with the overalls on.
Yeah, the mustache.
Yeah, and so you're getting all of these two ways. You have the former mayor, the woman who was mayor when all this happened, and you're getting all of these conversations with them. And initially in the documentary, you think they were just living here. It's mostly a retirement community. And then this group of thousands of people move in next door, literally next door. And they start doing all this stuff with land that's polluting their ranches and changing their basic quiet lifestyle. All of a sudden there's cars going through town. There are all these people and they have this sort of NIMBY reaction I think the documentary is at its most interesting when the same people that we initially come to sympathize with and empathize with, like what did this happen in our town, get a little bit xenophobic, and we see tons of archived tape that have straight up xenophobic language where people are on the daily news programs going like, these people and their weird beliefs and their weird clothes coming into our town. And then we see in Oregon, you know, they have a plan. Their plan is to bring a lot of people in, register them to vote, to be able to change the opinion and the sort of government where they want to be.
Want to take control of the
which
government,
is, by the way, I'm sorry, that's their democratic right. The same way it is when there's a college in a town and all the students come in and they want to vote when they live on campus. And they do voter suppression stuff against the Rajneeshis. And they do all this like weird xenophobic outsider stuff. Like, that's the point for me where, you know, despite what happens later with the poisoning and all that stuff, like, I kind of come to understand where the rebellion comes into play, because they really are just...
Whose rebellion?
The Rajneeshi rebellion. Because don't you think that they're weaponizing themselves and all that stuff is about them saying, like, screw you guys, we just wanted to come here and do this, and you literally, like... waged war against us with democracy?
I think Toby just said it. You know, it's like you live to protect the hive.
Right.
But that's so they felt threatened.
But so weren't the townspeople the same exact way?
They felt threatened.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that like it would be not weird to have like 1 million people move into your tiny town and take over the cafe and buy all the land and whatever, but like the words they used at the time, not the present day people telling the story now. When you see those same people...
Well, their language is different because they're relaxed because they won.
Yeah, their
they
language
don't feel
is
the
also
same
different
sense of
because
anxiety.
of what you can say at the time, and it comes off as really kind of like racist, homophobic, xenophobic, at the same all that same kind of language.
Phobic.
That's how it sounds.
Toby, this reminds me actually of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where it's like one of these allegories for
communism.
Communism.
Everyone's wearing red.
You know, like the fear that our way of life is being taken over by some other.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think that's something that Sheila kind of diagnosed and then sort of taunted them with.
In fairness to the people that are coming across as racist, and they are, I mean, they picked a bad place to try to go set up a commune out in like rural, remote Oregon, where, I mean, honestly, you've got a bunch of old retirees who have a very limited window of experience in terms of like what their world has been. So do I think it's right? No, but in fairness to them, I can see how this was overwhelming and scary when you're in this little tiny town and all of a sudden here comes the Rolls Royces and all these people, and it's so far out of the realm from anything that they've ever experienced, because it doesn't seem like there was a lot going on there.
You know, I can understand that too, and you know, one of the things that I found frustrating about this whole thing was that it made me feel some sympathy for people who are basically have bigoted attitudes, which I do not was not a good feeling.
Right.
But I think what is the most objectionable thing about that whole bit is like you can see where the townspeople would get upset about the people coming and then kind of, you know, stacking the town council and doing all this stuff. But what I think the trouble comes is when the state basically picks a side in that dispute, like law be damned.
Yep.
And it's just like, we're going to protect, quote unquote, Oregon.
We're not going to allow any new voters
freaks
to register today.
Right.
That was upsetting.
Yeah. And it's just, regardless of what you think about the Rajneeshis themselves, and I've got kind of mixed feelings, the way that was all handled by the government strikes me as A, bullshit, but B, also sort of a dangerous precedent. You know, it's basically repressing a minority religion that people find weird.
Right. And also a minority people, because one of the things that the Rajneeshis did, and it's tactical, it's not like all about being good people, it was a tactical decision, was they imported homeless people from all over the United States to come live on their commune, and they packaged it as, we're doing this nice thing. But even Sheila says the goal was to get more registered voters in the state so they could help like influence politics in the state of the county. By the way, that is all completely legal. And I can make a very strong argument that it should be legal. Like I said, where you live is where you vote. That is how our democracy works. They made this tactical decision. This is happening in New Hampshire now, or it did a few years ago with the Free Staters, like all the people deciding to move here to try to influence government. And it isn't the state's place to say, like, no, we're just like not doing voter registration today because we don't want your kind on our voter rolls. Kevin, that was weird, right?
Yeah, I didn't think that they should have done that. As far as like we suspect there's going to be voter registration fraud.
Right.
And yeah, I was like, yeah, well, they actually can do that. I mean, they actually can, bring people. And if it's kind of bad form, it is very provocative.
Right.
But
there's nobody like asking the homeless people on Skid Row in LA to register for the voter rolls there. Like they're like
Right. All right. Right. I don't know. I think you're far too sympathetic to this cult.
I'm not sympathetic. I'm
really?
interested.
Yeah,
I'm
it's interesting. It's a very interesting story.
It is.
It really is. But again, I think we said this before, it's a real surface skim of what was going on that left us with a lot of important contextual clues that we just didn't get.
Right.
I really would like to know a little more about the poisoning of people.
Right.
How did that get carried out?
And the drugging of the homeless people who lived on that thing. It was
that
terrible.
Went by like that.
Yes.
I mean, it's not supposed to, the focus is not like on the crime. It's sort of like on the whole, the whole lifespan of this community. But this is the one that kind of suffers from all the narration being just people's interviews.
Right.
Because you can only put in what people say.
Right.
And if you had, say, for example, a narrator or one of those like cards that you just read, they could take a deeper dive in some of these other side things. And like, if nobody's going to explain how it was financed, then we're never going to know, and we don't.
Right. And many people pointed this out on our Facebook discussion group who sent in comments, was that there's no, in this documentary, some documentaries work this way, but in this documentary, there's no outside voice. There's no reporter. There's no, even like the screen text, which they used liberally in that weird font that I could barely read. There's no like facts popping up to ground you.
Just locations and dates.
And give you that perspective. And that does leave you like with, where did they get all the money? What do they actually believe in? Were they actually dangerous before their hotel was bombed? Like, what were they planning to do with all those guys? Like, it was confounding, right, Laura?
The opportunity that I think they missed, and I was frustrated because I thought we were finally going to get that context. They have this reporter who, from everything I've seen, did probably the most extensive investigative reporting on this whole situation while it was unfolding. I think he even went to India to find out about. And I'm like, why are you not using this guy to give the background and the context and the information? I mean, there was some, but he's somebody that could have been used as the narrator. He's somebody that could have been used to give more information about kind of the bigger context here. Because I just felt very scattered a lot of the time watching this, like, wait, what's going on?
Right. Yeah, because other than the Rajneeshis or the townspeople or the government, a reporter is a guy who necessarily doesn't have any, any dog in the fight.
Right. I will say the Oregonian very smartly just republished the 20-part series that reporter did. I'm just going to quickly tell you what some of these parts are. Part 1, how the followers of Bhagwan Rajneesh came to Oregon from India. Part 2, how a small-town Indian boy became a religious guru. Part 3,
this is what I want to know.
Before coming to Oregon, the Bhagwan built this thing, yada, yada, yada. The real reasons why the Rajneeshis left India for Oregon. Tales of smuggling, gold, money, and drugs.
What?
Part 6, between India and Oregon, the life or death melodrama surrounding Bhagwan's failing health. Sheila using family ties to purchase the Oregon land. Like, there's a lot of information. This is a 20-part investigation. The Oregonian has republished it. And Kevin, I think you should link to this in our show notes today, because I have a feeling that every question this documentary left us with is probably answered in this 20-part thing that was done in 1982.
Wow, this discussion was all over the place.
Just like the documentary.
Yeah, just like the documentary, which I was like, I was like at one point, like Ken's like, what? Because I'm going, wait, what? Oh my God, they're having sex. Wait, what's happening? Like that, some of the naked sex scenes, I was just like, whoa, like where did that come from?
This isn't the guy in me talking, but there was not enough of that.
Toby, did you think, like I did and like some of our listeners did, there was too much scoring, too much music in this documentary?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it a ton until my buddy Martin was on Twitter talking about it. and then I couldn't think of anything else. There was, even before he was on, I like paused it at one point and, went to get something to eat. And when I came back, I turned it back on. And one of the things that I don't understand why they did this is they would play a song that had singing in it. Mm-hmm. And then somebody would be, talking and there'd be singing in the background.
With lyrics, yeah.
It was like bizarre and totally distracting. So when I sat down and started listening to it, I'm like, is somebody playing music somewhere? It just is so weird.
That wasn't mixed well.
The scoring is overwhelming.
So yeah, there's a lot of that, and then there was a lot of sort of signaling how you're supposed to feel about different things when I think you could probably draw your own conclusions.
Yeah. What do you think about our Australian friend, the documentary, Toby? The woman who is sort of like, she was really, really devoted, and she's one of our she's one of our main narrators, and she's giving us a lot of perspective in terms of how she fell into it and how she fell out of it. Like, what do you think of her?
I think she was good in that she's the only voice you heard very consistently that had been part of the Rajneeshis who wasn't totally devoted to him. I thought she was good. What I wish they'd had is just some sense of what it was like just to be like a person there who wasn't involved in like the high-end decision making or anything like that, but just a person who showed up and did the dancing and did the meditating and
the weird sex
helped
movies
build and stuff. Yeah, because my guess is that the vast majority of people are there like doing their Rajneeshi thing.
Peace and love.
Without any thought about trying to kill people.
They're not grinding up beavers in a blender and putting them in the town water supply.
Nobody was doing that, Rebecca. That was just a rumor. Let's not spread that.
I'm not 100% sure Sheila's out because she still had a photo of Bhagwan on the wall on her house in her modern day life after serving a jail sentence after all this. Like, it's weird. It's weird, right?
The other thing that and this is like a recurring theme with me, is people involved in law enforcement like having weird feelings around people and then like giving that some credence when they think about whether these people are guilty or not. When the Bhagwan was in there, and I can't remember, it was one of the U.S. attorneys said, I talked to the woman who was the sketch artist, and she said the only time, there was a weird, dark feeling. And he said, the only time I ever felt anything like that was around the Ayatollah Khomeini. It's like, wait, what? What are you talking about?
When did you sketch the Ayatollah?
And there was another one, I don't remember the details now, where somebody said something similar about Sheila. And I'm like, your intuition is not a good thing to base law on.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah. Well, what's also not like normal is when I'm dead, covering me with flowers and then filming people, setting me on fire.
Rebecca, there's going to be a podcast about that.
So weird.
I was like shrieking at that point. I couldn't even believe I was seeing that for real.
There's a lot there. There's a lot there to talk about. Yeah. So I feel like we have been all over the place, just like this documentary, Wild Wild Country. Let's just do that thing that we do where we go around the horn and tell our listeners thumbs up or thumbs down. Should they watch Wild Wild Country on Netflix? Laura Bricker? High pressure. I'm going to start with you.
So here's the deal. I'm going to give this a thumbs up. Not because, the story is very disjointed. I feel like a lot is left out, but I'm going to give it thumbs up because of all this archival video that they have makes it worth watching. All of the video that they have access to is just amazing. And it's probably the most bizarre thing I think we've ever watched for this podcast.
It's pretty bizarre. Toby Ball, what about you?
I give it a thumbs up. I think it's probably helpful to have done, like maybe read that Oregonian series before you watch it so you have some context. The footage is incredible. The story just brings up so many different things, as you can tell by our conversation. There's definitely some stuff about the documentary that's not great, and I don't know why they made those mistakes. But I enjoyed it. And obviously, there's a lot to think about with it.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a thumbs up, too. I kept waiting for something else to happen. And the idea of everything that happened with these people coming to Oregon and this huge story that I never heard about before that turned into one of the biggest legal cases in American history, apparently. It was interesting, and it pulled me through. I thought it was overly long. I thought that the whole thing could have been condensed down to a much shorter period of time. I think the scoring was too much, and I think we could have used a reliable narrator. However, it's an interesting story, super interesting protagonist, sort of, that Kevin and I disagree on whether or not she's a protagonist telling the story. So I'm going to give it a not a thumbs way up, but a thumbs up. If you like cult stuff, you'll probably like Wild Wild Country on Netflix. Kevin, what about you?
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up. There are some problems with it, that it leaves a lot about the situation and about the Rajneeshis left unanswered. I don't think it was even, it left them unquestioned, actually. I kept, watching, hoping that some of that would get cleared up. Not all of it does, but I couldn't stop watching.
Right.
I had to get through it. I really liked it, and I think most people will like it too. It's a thumbs up, if for nothing else, is to see like all of this video that they found from the 1980s.
Right.
That sort of is what the wallpaper is of the entire documentary. Of course, I told you they have 300 hours of VHS tapes.
Really?
Somehow they digitized that, but it would have been a lot easier if they had used Legacy Box.
Legacy Box. We have Legacy Box upstairs.
Yes, Legacy Box is the world's largest, most trusted digitizer of home movies and photos. So I took my Legacy Box and I put in a bunch of photos that I had from high school.
Mm-hmm.
Prints, and I'm always like, I'll scan those. I got a
that field
scanner.
trip to Paris you took as a kid?
Yeah, London and Paris, and it was great. And it wasn't a field trip. It wasn't like you came back.
It was a school trip.
Yes, all right. But yeah, I had all this stuff, and I think I'm going to digitize it all, and I don't have a whole day to be there for my scanner.
Your memories aren't that important.
Yeah.
Except they are.
But I really want them. I want to save them.
Right.
And I do want to be able to share them online with the folks that I went to high school with. And so Legacy Box did that. The process could not be easier. You just fill the Legacy Box with old home movies and photographs. I have a friend who was on Facebook looking for an adapter for a mini VHS tape.
Oh,
thing.
I used to have a high 8 digital camera.
What do you do with that now?
I have no idea.
You send it to Legacy Box.
I have one of those too.
Where I used to be able to delete the photos, but then it was digital. It was super weird.
Yeah, you send it along. They do everything. They digitize your moments onto either a thumb drive, the cloud, or a DVD, whatever you like. There's never been a better time to digitally preserve your old home movies, film reels, and photos. Visit legacybox.com to get started. Plus, for a limited time, they're offering our listeners a huge exclusive discount. Go to legacybox.com/crime to get 40% off your first order. With this exclusive deal, Legacy Box starts at just $45. So you can save up to $200 on the largest Legacy Box kit as well. So go to legacybox.com/crime to save 40% today. Start with just a few tapes or digitize your entire collection. Visit legacybox.com/crime and enter our code CRIME to save 40% off your Legacy Box today.
What else you got, Kevin?
I was really impressed with the way they built that town from the ground up.
Oh, God, yeah.
Everything outside looked great, but you go inside those A-frames and the interior decorating is really bad. They really could have used Havenly.
Oh, yeah, they could have.
Although I don't believe Havenly was around in the early 1980s.
I don't think it was.
But it's a wonderful time we live in now.
Right.
Because you can get Havenly. Their team of designers works with you online to design the living space of your dreams, be it a guest room, a family room, a kitchen, whatever. Using your budget and your style to shape and design and get the price that you can afford. Rebecca, I remember that you used Havenly.
Well, yeah, we used Havenly. It gave us some ideas for artwork we could use, and it gave us some ideas for like moving some furniture around and like buying a new like piece, or like the piece we put our dishes in.
Yeah.
That was an idea I got from Havenly.
Laura, you also used Havenly.
I did. So our dining room, I inherited some very formal dining room furniture from my grandmother, and that's not really like our style. We have this kind of rustic house, and we're, trying to make it a little less formal. And so I took pictures of my dining room and sent them in to the designers at Havenly, and they suggested something that I hadn't even thought of. They suggested using these like black and white, kind of architectural drawing style pictures on the wall to kind of break up the formal nature of the dining room. They sent me links to all sorts of pictures that they would recommend that kind of fit within that sort of description. And, from there you could choose whichever ones you personally liked, but they selected, like a whole list for you to go look at. And it really worked very well, and something I never would have thought of on my own.
Right. You can buy what you love directly through Havenly's platform of retailers and guaranteed best prices. Start by taking the free Havenly Style Quiz. It's a fun way to learn your unique design style, and it helps Havenly match you with the perfect designer. So try Havenly today by visiting havenly.com/crime and get 25% off your design package. That's Havenly, HAVENLY.com/crime for 25% off your design package. Havenly.com/crime.
Crime. All right, now it's time to move on to my favorite part of this podcast, a little something I like to call the Crime of the Week. It's something the children in Arizona's Mojave Valley look forward to every year. At their annual Easter celebration last week, 30,000 eggs and bucketfuls of candy were dropped from a passing plane. But this year, there may be more in their baskets than they bargained for. Health officials say the plane was a crop duster, and the treats may be contaminated.
Oh, no.
Authorities say the crop duster's tank may not have removed all traces of its herbicide. They later determined the tank had been properly treated but told parents to throw out the eggs and candy just to be safe. Today, no one has reported getting sick from the Easter Bunny biohazard. So question panel, crop dusting Easter eggs
30,000 Easter eggs.
is an effective way of ruining the holiday. What's another way you can ruin a holiday? Laura Bricker, I'm going to start with you.
First, when I was covering a local beach that sometimes can get a little seedy, I actually covered an Easter egg hunt that was on the beach where the kids ended up picking up hypodermic needles instead of Easter eggs.
Oh, Jesus.
So that was unfortunate.
Bonus.
But in my house, what would ruin a holiday is something that actually happened this year because we got distracted on Christmas overcooking the beef roast. Because you can't go back once you overcook it. And
can't.
Yeah.
No taking that back. Not even Sheila can be the fixer for that. Toby Ball, besides contaminated Easter eggs and candy, what is another way you could ruin a holiday?
Well, speaking of Sheila, you could ruin it by blending up a bunch of beavers and putting them in the eggnog.
Yeah, that would be bad. Kevin Flynn, what about you? What is another way, besides contaminated eggs dropped from a plane, that you could ruin a holiday?
X-Lax chocolate bunnies.
Oh, God.
It reminds me of my very favorite episode of WKRP in Cincinnati, where they had the turkey drop at Thanksgiving.
Turkey drop,
yeah, from the helicopter, and
that was awesome.
The turkeys just would go straight down and start hitting people, and there were exploding turkeys everywhere. And I remember at the end, the promotions guy comes in and he goes, "God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly."
All right, Laura Berger, before you wrap up our show this evening, do we have a cat of the week this week?
We don't have a cat. I'm going to read you what we have. It comes from Dottie Winters, one of our frequent Twitter followers. And she says, ever had a guinea pig of the week?
Nope.
No.
We rescued Reggie and his brother Ronnie. When Ronnie died, we were so worried how Reggie would cope. Turns out he is so fucking delighted that he is now the prime suspect in his brother's death.
Oh, Dottie.
Yeah, I'm on to you, Reggie. Once I'm done with the muskrat, I'm on to Reggie.
Yeah, Dottie Winters is actually one of my favorite followers of this podcast. She's been with us since the beginning.
Hey, Dottie.
Yep.
Yes, she's pretty wonderful. All right, Laura Bricker, people want to get in touch with you and submit the animals that live in their houses for Pet of the Week. How can they find you on Twitter?
At Laura Bricker.
And Toby Ball, people want to reach out to you and perhaps, I don't know, become a guest on a future book club, Toby Time, Balls Deep, additional content podcast. How can they reach you?
I'm at Toby Ball NH, and I'd like to point out that it's another disturbing Pet of the Week story.
Is there a trend here?
And Kevin Flynn, if people want to reach out to you, how can they find you online?
Right now, I am at Aqua Flynn.
That's right. You're actually still at Kevin
I'm
P.
at
Flynn.
Kevin P. Flynn, but you say I'm Aqua Flynn.
Can you do the noise one more time? And you can find me, the host of the greatest podcast in the world, on Twitter and Instagram at Reb Lavoie. You can also tweet to our show at Crime Writers On. And join the fine folks on the official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group, where we are now occasionally broadcasting live video from inside Studio C, or whatever we're calling it these days. It's pretty exciting. Just search for the official Crime Writers On Facebook discussion group on Facebook, or if you're boring, leave a comment on a regular old Facebook page. Subscribe now to get exclusive ad-free content from our team at StitcherPremium.com/crime. If you love the show or any of our other shows, please tell a friend. And if you haven't, leave a review on iTunes. Our theme song was performed by the awesome Rocksteady Freddy and the New York Ska Jazz Ensemble, and this show was recorded in the, for today, named Yoga Loft above the Bodega in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi studio, otherwise known as Studio C, but it's really just a closet in our basement where we definitely hang all of our red, orange, and purple cult clothes. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
I didn't learn much today.
Nobody would fart in a studio with someone they loved. Oh my God! Jesus.
I told you I'm not feeling well.
Wait, if you loved me, would you fart in a closet when I'm sitting right behind you in that closet?
It just makes it sound like I couldn't love you
abuse.
and do the same thing.
It's abuse.
Hey, I'm smelling this too. It's a closet after all.
I didn't consent to smell it.
Partners in Crime Media.
Meet Namely, the all-in-one HR, payroll, and benefits software employees love to use. Clock in, schedule a vacation, and more from your desk or on the go. Plus, use the social feed to share company news and give shout-outs for a job well done. Over 1,000 companies use Namely every day. Get a free demo by visiting namely.com/crime. That's namely.com/crime. Build a better workplace with Namely.
So you're saying with Hilton Honors, I can use points for a free night stay anywhere?
Anywhere.
What about fancy places like the Canopy in Paris?
Yeah, Hilton Honors, baby.
Or relaxing sanctuaries like the Conrad in Tulum?
Hilton Honors, baby.
Ooh, what about the 5-star Waldorf Astoria in the Maldives?
Are you gonna do this for all 7,000 hotels and resorts?
When you want points that can take you anywhere, it matters where you stay. Hilton for the stay.
Click the banner to join Hilton Honors for free today.